to receive from the world his own. So the question is, how long? How long till Jesus comes? Some scientists are saying that the world might not last another 1,000 years. Some say that we'll run out of food and other resources as the world population continues to explode. Others are saying that we may be wiped out as a huge comet or asteroid collides with the Earth. Some believe that aliens from another planet will arrive and destroy us all. And still we have others who say that we will destroy ourselves in a nuclear war. Now, these scientists are not Seventh-day Adventists. Some of them are not even Christians. But they realize that the world is coming to an end. There are some images, and I'm looking to see if it's up there. Oh, there it is. The world is coming to an end. It's going to be like that. Nuclear war. Most of us do recognize that the world's coming to an end, don't we? Now the question is, will it end in our lifetime? Or will it end 1,000 years from now? Now, see, this doesn't work too well. It does. The disciples, one day, as chapter 24 in the book of Matthew says, they showed Jesus as they were there near the temple. They showed Jesus the temple that had been rebuilt by the Roman government. And even though it was not as glorious as the temple that Solomon built, but still it was a tremendous building. And Jesus made a statement as they showed him the building. It's found in the book of Matthew chapter 24, verse 2, when they said, when Jesus said, "Do you see all these things? Assuredly, I say to you, not one stone shall be left here upon another that shall not be thrown down." Not one stone. Now, this was the greatest building in that part of Jerusalem. And of course, that statement of Jesus kind of shocked the disciples. Not one stone would be left on top of another. And as they went up to the Mount of Olives, they then asked Jesus the question that, of course, we all the time ask ourselves, when these things are going to take place. But they added to that question because they put the destruction that Jesus is talking about of the temple in Jerusalem, they put that in the context of the end. And they say, and what will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age? That's in verse 3. So they put the two together. What's going to be the sign? And Jesus answered that question, which was coming in two different events. One of them, his second coming, and the other one, the destruction of the temple. And Jesus, of course, answered both questions in one discourse at the same time. He referred to that in verse 15 and 16. He says, when you shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet, he says, when you see that standing in the holy place, whoever reads, let him understand. And let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. And of course, he was talking about the destruction of Jerusalem at this time. Daniel had predicted that the Jewish nation would have just so many years to finish their special mission. And now Jesus goes back to the book of Daniel, and he says, when you see the abomination of desolation standing in the holy place, it's time for you to do what? To leave Jerusalem, because destruction is imminent. And of course, the Jewish people did not fulfill with their mission as given by God as being the light of the world. So Jesus said in verse 17 and 18, he said, let him who is on the housetop not come down to take anything out of his house. And let him who is in the field not go back to get his clothes. In other words, he told them that they were to flee for their lives, because when they saw the armies encircling the city of Jerusalem, the destruction was imminent. Now in Luke 21:20, Jesus said, but when you see Jerusalem surrounded by armies, then know its desolation is near. In 22, he went on to tell them that wherever they were, when they saw those armies, they needed to flee. For these are the days of vengeance, that all things that are written may be fulfilled. And in the 24th verse, he says, and they will fall by the edge of the sword and be led away captive into all nations. And Jerusalem will be trampled by the Gentiles until the time of the Gentiles are fulfilled. Now, in the year 66 before Christ, approximately 33 years after Jesus gave this prediction, the Roman armies under Cestius came to put down a revolt, a rebellion that had broken out in Jerusalem. And as they laid siege against the city, however, the city withstood the ravage of the Roman army. And finally, the Roman armies withdrew, despairing of actually being able to take the city. And that was the time when the people should do what? Flee. But in order for them to know that, they would have to remember what Jesus had told them, what Jesus had said to them. They were not to ignore the signs that Jesus emphasized, specifically when they saw that the Roman armies were coming over, the abomination of desolation spoken of by the prophet. What prophet? Daniel. Now, those who had followed the instruction given by Jesus escaped the destruction of the city of Jerusalem. Not even one Christian was killed when the city of Jerusalem was taken by the Roman armies in the year AD 70. But you know how many Jews died? Any idea? 1,100,000 Jews died. See, they failed to follow Jesus' instruction to flee the city when the Roman army withdrew in AD 66. Now, here's a striking lesson on the importance of studying what book? His book here, right? Now we put so much emphasis on our children studying the academic material that they have to study to pass from one grade to another. And we don't put as much emphasis on our children studying the Bible. See, it's very important to know prophecies, signs. It's very important to watch the signs and to make sure that we don't ignore them. See, the Bible doesn't complicate things for us. The Bible makes it simple for us. You see, it's easier for us. It's very easy for us to understand what Jesus is talking about if we observe the signs that are taking place that fulfill basically everything he has said how many years ago? About 2,000 years ago. As a matter of fact, yeah, just about 2,000 years. Now, if my grandparents were alive and they made some predictions, I would understand things happening pretty much the way they said, even though there will be a lot of things that they would not be able to make predictions because just wasn't happening at their time. But to make predictions like the one Jesus did about 2,000 years ago, and to see that these predictions are taking place just as he predicted them, that's amazing. But we cannot ignore these signs. And in order to know the signs, we have to read the Bible. Here is an example in the city of Jerusalem. The Christians who paid attention to the signs, they were able to escape, but the others did not. And it's interesting that so it will be at the end. Now, what happened to the temple? That magnificent temple. Titus, the general, had given orders not to put fire on the temple. Specific orders not to put fire on the temple because it was a magnificent building. But somehow, one of his soldiers, a soldier could pay with his life by disobeying the general at that time. But somehow, one of the soldiers threw a torch through the temple, and not one stone was left. Why he did throw the torch? Because signs had to be fulfilled. Because Jesus had prophesied that was going to happen. Things had to happen the way he had prophesied, one way or another. Not one stone was left upon another. The temple that you see up there now, that is rebuilt on top of the old temple that the Romans had rebuilt. But it just happened 40 years after Jesus. Just happens exactly the way he had foretold. Now, what about the signs that Jesus gave us concerning the end of the world? The question is, will we ignore them or heed the warnings and be ready for what lies ahead? Now, the reason I chose this topic for today is because in my view, in my personal view, we are ignoring the signs. I'm not talking about the people out there. We, Seventh-day Adventists. You see, Jesus told the disciples what were the signs of the destruction of Jerusalem and that they were to flee at the time. And probably the disciples spoke to other disciples that Jesus had said that. So they were prepared. And when the destruction of Jerusalem, when they saw the abomination of desolation, that there was one sign that the destruction was coming, they fled. But the question is, after all the signs Jesus gave to us, indicating the nearness of his coming. How are we responding? It is a question that we need to answer ourselves. Are we ready for what it lies ahead? Let's take a look at some of these signs, because Jesus was very clear, very explicit when he gave them. Matthew 24, verse 7, Christ said, "For nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. And there will be famines, pestilence, and earthquakes in various places." You know, the 20th century. This morning I asked when the 20th century began and when it ended. And some didn't even know that it had ended. You know, we are in the 21st century. The 20th century began when? In the 1900s, right? Ended at the end of the 1900s. So we are in the 21st century. Now, do you know that the 20th century was the bloodiest century in mankind's history? And by the way, the 21st century is not coming behind at all. As a matter of fact, I think the 21st century is going to be worse. But the 20th century was the bloodiest one. World War I, back in 1914, saw 20 million people sacrificed on the altar of war. That's a lot of people. World War II witnessed the destruction of 50 million people. And when everyone thought that in 1944, I think that's when they signed the 45, they signed the peace treaty, right? Now, when they thought that we would have peace, then a few years later, we had the Korean War, then we had the Vietnam War, then the killing of the feuds of Cambodia, the Gulf War, the Bosnia Massacre, the attempt to eliminate the Tutsis in Africa, and it's keep on going. And thank God that now we have no wars going on. Right, Dwight? Are you sure? You see, we have not had a moment when we can say there is no war going on. Are there wars going on right now in the world? More than that, now we have terrorism to add to that. And whenever there is a bomb, someplace, it's always lots of people who die. In the Olympic Games now in Brazil, they had to bring the army from, to Rio to make sure that those athletes were protected and those who came for the Olympic Games were protected. Because we live now with the idea in our minds that we are at war. And the problem is that our enemy is invisible now. We don't know when he is going to attack and where he is going to attack. So we have to be careful. Now when you go to take a plane, you go already fearful, right? You look at everybody around you. Is this guy going to go in the plane I'm going to go with? Wait a minute. This year, we were coming back from Italy, and the plane went to Istanbul. And there we wait to make change of planes. And then we were on the line, going through all these security. And then we look at it behind of us, there were all these people, about 200 of them, dressed with the long robes, with the turbans, And I said, all these people are going to go in my plane? No way. I felt like changing my mind. They were peaceful. They were going in another plane. But we live in fear, don't we? Another Bible prophecy concerning peace and preparation is found in the book of Thessalonians. But when they say peace and what? Safety. Then what? By the way, is this happening now? When they say peace and safety, then something happens. And we think that now we're going to have some peace and then something else. Not long ago, we had the problem in Paris, wasn't it? Then we had another one in Belgium, and it goes on and on and on. I mean, it doesn't stop. We are living in difficult times. Sudden destruction comes upon them. We talk about peace, but there is no peace. It is just talk. That's what it is. The Bible says that in the last moments of this earth, men will have the ability to destroy the earth. Now, does men have that ability today? The nations were angry and your wrath has come and should destroy those who destroy the earth. The Bible says that we are destroying the earth, and we do have that ability today. As a matter of fact, with the invention of the nuclear bomb, man now has that ability. It's a fact. And there are some crazy leaders in this world today that we cannot trust. At any time, they can do some crazy thing. And we really don't know what to expect. But the Lord said there will be what? Disasters of every kind in the last days. There will be famines. And he goes on and he says a lot of other things about famines and some things else. But you know, talking about famines, more than 57 million people will starve to death in this year. Just imagine more than 57 million people. That's a lot of people. More than 156,000 who will die each day from starvation in the world. 156,000? My, that's a lot of people. From starvation. Every time you sit at your table to eat, remember that. More than 156,000. Now, in the United States, I don't know of anybody dying of starvation, even though there may be. But you go out there and you can understand that this is indeed true. Lots of people out there that have not even bread and milk to eat. Of the over 6 billion people alive on the earth at the present time, 60% are malnourished. 20% will end up starving. Jesus said, how many years ago? About 2,000 years ago. That there would be what? Famine, starvation, right? Is it happening? It's happening. And the way things are going is not going to get any better. Informed sources tell us that when population outpaces food production, then worldwide famine, starvation, epidemics, and food wars are inevitable. How will we feed the added billions when 2/3 of the world's population are hungry right now? In Luke 21:25, Jesus described earth's last hour dilemma by saying that there would be upon the earth distress of nations with perplexity. In Matthew 24:7, Jesus said that there would be pestilences, there would be famines and pestilence and earthquakes in various places. Now, the word pestilence today means, according to the dictionary, of course, plague. There would be plagues. That's what he's saying here. Now, do we have plagues today? Well, we have had many plagues. We have had AIDS, right? And malaria, pneumonia, tuberculosis. Not long ago, what was it? Ebola, new forms of syphilis. They had it controlled at one time. Gonorrhea, cholera. Lately, here in Miami already, what is it? Zika. That's all they talk about now. No? In Brazil, they already make funny comics with Zika because they are getting used to it now. But Zika is a very serious thing. This mosquito is a very difficult mosquito to get rid of. And not only Zika, there are other diseases too that comes with it. When we think we have controlled one plague here, then comes another one there. Well, Jesus predicted there would be pestilences, plagues. That's plural, not singular. The World Health Organization says we now have 40 million cases of HIV. In other words, they say the whole nations will be wiped out if something is not done to stop it. Another signs of the times is found in our environmental pollution. The sky over many of our large cities is filled with carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide and many other poisonous chemicals that we breathe in through our lungs. We used to live in Bakersfield, California, before we came to Florida. And Bakersfield, I found out, is the third worst city in the United States as far as pollution is concerned. Got Pittsburgh. Don't go to Pittsburgh, it's number one. Then you got Los Angeles, number two. And then comes Bakersfield. I lived there 5 years. So when the call came to come to Florida, I said, it's time to purify my lungs. And for the 9 years, I take advantage of every moment I can to go out there and breathe in fresh air. You got fresh air here in Florida. But if you go to the large cities of this country, you got carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide in the air. Polluted cities. You know, servant of the Lord says that when we get close to the end, we need to get out of the cities. The cities are polluted in many ways, not just in the environment, but in many other ways too. In many places, the water is no longer safe to drink because of all the dangerous substance in it. You know that it says there in one American city, 25% of drinking water is reclaimed sewer water. But you know that in Florida, you drink reclaimed sewer water too? That's the water that goes into the toilet. Did you know that one day it's going to be at your table again? Purified, of course, by chemicals. Long were the days when people would go out there to a natural fountain, right? And drink water. Now, imagine what has happened in some of these larger cities, where it's getting to be less and less available, what we call pure water. That's why I drink water from the bottle. What can we do? Huh? But it's going to get better, isn't it, Brother Coelho? It's going to get worse, my friends. Atomic waste have become a real problem to dispose of. With the world's rapid increase in population, we are facing serious problems in surviving on Earth. Where are we going to be able to get energy and pure water and air? Where will we get food? That's a question that we have to face, whether we like it or not. Jesus said in the book of Matthew 24, verse 7, that there will be earthquakes in how many places? Various places. We have seen a massive acceleration in the number of earthquakes occurring. In Luke 21, 11, 25, the Bible says there will be great earthquakes in various places, and famines and pestilences. And there will be fearful sights and great signs from heaven. Now, each year, we have more than 6,000 major earthquakes. Now, we don't know there's so many, right? Because we don't hear there are so many earthquakes, but it's happening each year. They are able to tabulate. Just recently, we had a major one where? Italy. Every time there is one major earthquake, there are hundreds of people who die. In the last 90 years alone, we had more than 1,500,000 fatalities. That's a lot of people. In the last 90 years. Anybody here 90 years old? Yes, we do have. We have Sister Boros. Oh, you are 90 years old? He means 9. I said 90, Josiah. That's a lot of earthquake. Well, this thing went way ahead of me. And there will be signs in the sun, in the moon, the stars, and on the earth, distress of nations. Now let's go back here, if I can get back to where I was. See, I'm working with this thing here. And I can't see well there. All right. And it says there what? There'll be perplexity in the sea, and the waves roaring. Notice that it says the wind and the waves will be roaring. All over the world, we have seen some extraordinary weather. Typhoons with attending tidal waves, tornadoes, hurricanes, volcanoes. All of these things are taking a fearful toll in property and lives. Just now we have is it a hurricane up north? That's what they call type 1, right? Category 1. It's not as bad, they say. But it still is a lot of damage. Not as bad, but a lot of damage. Notice that it says there that that is going to happen. Then we have, it says in the Bible that thousands and thousands of people are going to be running to and fro. By the way, this prophecy comes from Daniel. You know, the book of Daniel is an interesting book. It talks about the future and prophecies. And Daniel was a prophet But it came a point when Daniel could not understand what was really going to happen and what he was writing really meant. For you to see that even prophets sometimes, they are limited. And God told Daniel what? He told Daniel that he better forget about it, go to sleep. In other words, you're going to die. Shut up the book, because what you're writing has to do with the time of the end. And then the Lord said to him what? Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall increase. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall increase. That's found in same chapter 12 of the book of Daniel. Well, it's true indeed that knowledge of all kinds has increased. Now, if you buy a gadget today, you see that these things are obsolete in very short time. To me, they are not obsolete, but I mean, in general. Now, I bought these not long ago, and they are already announcing a new one. This is a 6S. It's not good anymore, Brother Dwight. They're coming with the 7. But you think it's going to stop there? Then they'll come with an 8 and 9 and so forth. It doesn't stop. Science is growing daily. Knowledge has increased. Our children today, they are born and we give them a little computer. Children 4 years of age, 3 years of age, they are already working with the iPad. I mean, it's tremendous. I mean, can you imagine that? I remember when I started playing with the computer. That was not a long time ago. No, it was not. It was one of those IBM computers with the green letters, the yellow letters on the green, display. I remember that I had to memorize all these F9, F7, F6, F2, or whatever. It was so complicated. And then they told me that they had the new technology, the new finding with the Windows. And I installed Windows, and it was much easier. But they keep on adding things, and every time you buy a new computer, you got to learn new things. The fact is that knowledge has indeed increased. This is good in a way, because it was predicted that knowledge would increase when? Time of the end. What is good about this is that now we can go back to the book of Daniel and find out what Daniel was writing about that had to do with the last days. Then it says there that people would run to and fro. By the way, just so you have an idea how knowledge is increasing, when you go to a doctor, and the doctor is an elderly person, you kind of feel a little insecure, don't you? Instead of saying this guy has experience because he's elderly, you say this guy doesn't have knowledge because he's not young enough. The people who have been in school now, they got new knowledge. And this is the way it is. And knowledge has indeed increased in all areas. Today, they are ready to spend the lifespan of individuals, even if the guy doesn't get up of his bed, but people today are able to live much longer than a few years ago with medicine. Because there was a time when they lived longer, then they lived shorter lives, and now they are back again living longer lives. Thousands and thousands of people are running to and fro. Aren't they? You get a plane here in the morning and have breakfast at home, and then you have lunch somewhere in another country, thousands of miles away. And then you return to your home to have dinner with your wife. I mean, we move. You got all kinds of transportation. People are going everywhere. And we live in a mobile society. so mobile that we don't even know each other anymore. Because this neighbor of mine is a new neighbor. The next month is another one. And it changes a lot. People moving back and forth. You know, it's amazing. We have all types of transportation and people moving around. Well, Jesus compared conditions on the earth in the last days with Sodom and Gomorrah, two of the most sinful cities that ever existed. And you know, God destroyed them with fire from heaven. Jesus said, likewise also as it was in the days of Lot. In verse 30 of chapter 17 of Luke, even thus shall it be in the day when the Son of Man is revealed. Jude wrote Sodom and Gomorrah and the cities around them, having given themselves over to what? Sexual immorality, are set forth. That's what Jude wrote as what? Example. Now, why that's important? Well, Paul is speaking of the moral conditions that characterize these cities. He says in the book of Romans, even their women exchanged natural relations for unnatural ones. Now, when I was growing up, that was not happening on such the scale that's happening today. Now, is that happening today? Is that happening in a very large scale today? Has that become normal, natural today? The norm? Huh? Now is the norm. Now is the thing. See? Now it is mentioned here as one of the sins of Sodom and Gomorrah. And Jesus says that's one of the signs of what? Of the end, of the coming of the Son of Man. Paul is speaking also a little later in Romans chapter 1, verse 27, says, in the same way, the men also abandoned natural relations with women and were inflamed with lust for one another. Now, is that happened to? That's happening all around us. Is that the norm also? That's the law of the land. Not just the United States, but many nations have adopted that new morality. The new morality. The new morality is called in the Bible immorality. See, and the new morality is one of the signs predicted by Jesus that indicates that his coming is soon. It's happening right before our eyes. But it seems that we are ignoring the signs. It seems that we think that Jesus is not going to come soon. By the way, we have been living. Men committed indecent acts with other men, says the Apostle Paul. 2 Timothy 3:2-5 says, people will be lovers of themselves, lovers of money, boastful, proud, abusive, disobedient to their parents, ungrateful, unholy, without love, unforgiving, slanderous, without self-control, brutal, not lovers of the good, treacherous, rash, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, having a form of godliness, but denying its power. Is this happening? Every single thing that's been mentioned there. And when was that written? About 2,000 years ago. When I was growing up, it was not like that. It was a much more kinder world. It was a better world. A world in which you could believe in people, trust in people. A world where you would not have fear of going out at night. Even when I came to the United States in 1961, I came to Chicago. I would go downtown. I would be downtown after midnight. I would come home sometimes 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning. No fear. Today, can you do that in Chicago? Or in any big city? No. As a matter of fact, it doesn't have to be midnight. Today, in daylight, you are afraid of what can happen to you. It has changed. Jesus said these are signs. The Apostle Paul said these are signs that we are living near the end. 2 Timothy 3:13 says, evil men and impostors will go from bad to, can it be worse than what it is? Deceiving and being deceived. Christ warned about the false Christ and false prophets who would appear to say, if anyone says to you, look, here is Christ, but they do not believe. Of false Christ and false prophets will rise and show great signs and wonders to deceive, it says, even the very elect. Even the very elect. Therefore, now that's kind of a conclusion. Therefore, if they say to you, look, he's in the desert, do not go out. There will be no need to go anywhere, for Jesus said, as the lightning comes from the east, flashes to the west, so also will be the coming of the Son of Man. See, Revelation says that he's coming with clouds, and every eye shall see him, even they who pierce him. That's how he's coming. Now, I could go on. I would still have a number of other signs, like the days of Lot, the days of Noah, right? Noah preached for how long? 120 years. And even when Noah was getting ready to go in the ark, people were ignoring the signs. Even when they saw that a strange group of animals and of all kinds going into the ark like guided by a supernatural hand, they ignore the signs. Even when they were in the ark, for 7 days it didn't rain. What did they do? They mocked. They mocked Noah. They ignored the signs. And then rain started to come down. And then they realized, for the first time, rain started to come down. They realized when they saw the waters rising and rising and rising, it rose higher than the highest mountain. That was too late. You see, we are ignoring a lot of signs. As I said, there are many more. Time doesn't allow us to go on and on and on. But you and I should be familiar with the signs of the end. We should be right now aware that we are living very close to the end. There's one sign that is not yet fulfilled. What is that? Then the gospel shall be preached to the whole world. And then the end will come. But my question is the gospel being preached to the whole world? You know, you may even find in the Amazon jungle one of those Indians with a little computer streaming the voice of prophecy. Yeah. I mean, technology has gone very far. The fact is that now we have television, we have internet, we have all kinds of communication, and it's not going to be too long until we can say the gospel has been preached to the whole world. And then what else? The end will come. I mean, the signs are so clear. How can we ignore them? Jesus is coming. Where should we be right now? We should be involved in the Lord's work. We should be praying. We should be reading the scriptures. It's amazing when I come here on Wednesday night of a church of almost 300 members and I find 5 people in a prayer meeting. I know that lots of people have good excuses not to come because of work, because of so many activities. But remember, Satan is a specialist in keeping us busy, away from God. Whatever he can find for us to do, which is not bad, as long as we are not able to take the time that we need to examine the prophecies, to study the scriptures, and to be prepared because the end is coming. He is ready to involve us in that. Let us not ignore the signs. The Lord is coming. Will you be ready? Will I be ready? You're just saying, it may be at morn, it may be at noontide, right? Maybe at evening. It may be one of these days we wake up and find out that the Lord Jesus has come. But now it's too late. You know what I'm saying is serious business. We should not ignore the signs. Our young people are ignoring the signs. And we are doing nothing about it. We have to let them know. Signs indicate that the time that we have is not a long one. You know, our young people think that they're going to live to be 100. We don't know if Jesus is going to come in our lifetime or 1,000 years from now. We don't know. But the signs indicate that it's very soon. The disciples didn't know when the Roman army circled Jerusalem. They didn't know that that was going to happen in a few years. The year 66 came the sign. Jesus said, when you see the sign, get out. 4 years later, Jerusalem was destroyed. See, we don't know. Will you ignore the signs? I pray to God that you will not. May God help us. Let us stand for our final song.